with some comic and graphic novel recommendations for Cartoons Crossroads. First up, I've got Die, both like dice or like death. This one is written by Kieran Gillen with art by Stephanie Hans, letters by Clayton Cowles, and it's published by Image. It's a fantasy comic where the players are trapped inside a tabletop role-playing game. So think Jumanji crossed with Dungeons and Dragons. This one definitely has some mature content, so I'd recommend it for adult readers. It's really good for fantasy fans, tabletop RPG players, obviously. And it's a good one if you are looking to get in on an ongoing series when it's still pretty early in the run. All right, so my next one is also another book from Image. This one's called Pretty Deadly, The Rat. The writer is Kelly Sue DeConnick, who is probably best known as the writer for Captain Marvel. And then the art is by Emma Rios. So each volume of Pretty Deadly is basically a self-contained story arc that takes place in a different place and time period. So volume 1 was a Western, volume 2 a war story, and then volume 3, The Rat. This one's a noir style story in 1930s Hollywood. It's a really good book for people who like a darker story with a lot of like mythic and folklore sort of content. This is another one with some mature content, so I'd recommend for adult readers, but really, really complex, really cool stuff. On the lighter side of things, this one is called Check Please. The one I'm holding is volume 2, Sticks and Scones, that was published earlier this year. This is just a 2-volume graphic novel, and it's a fun, big-hearted story that focuses on a gay teen from Georgia who enrolls at a small liberal arts college in New England to play on the hockey team. So while he's there, he bakes a lot of pies. You can see the scones reference to the baking in the title. And of course, he falls in love with the hockey captain. This one is written and illustrated by Ngozi Ukazu, who's a Nigerian-American writer. It's really good for fans of sports comics and manga, people who like found family stories, and queer romance fans. All right, next up is a very fall story called Pumpkin Heads. It's written by Rainbow Rowell, who's also done a lot of YA fiction, and drawn by Faith Erin Hicks, who is one of our CXC guests. This one is a standalone graphic novel, so you don't have to come in with any prior information, and you can read it, really easily in a short period of time. It's the day in the life of 2 friends, pictured here on the title, who both work at a pumpkin patch. This one is really good for readers who like YA contemporary books and are maybe, just dipping their toes into the graphic novel world. It's also really good for high school students who have grown up with the books of Raina Telgemeier. And this one's great for teen and up. So all of my books so far have been pretty new titles, and now I'm going to kind of go back to the past with this one. I don't have the book in hand because at the time I'm recording this, it hasn't actually been published yet. It's the new collector's edition of Masonicoku by Rumiko Takahashi. This one is a classic manga that was originally published serially from 1980 to 1987. So I originally read this about 20 years ago, but it's being republished with a new translation in English that is promising to include more of the Japanese cultural context and some chapters that were not published in the English edition before. So this one's basically the manga equivalent of a sitcom. It all takes place in an apartment building with a kind of wacky cast of characters, and there's also a slow burn romance that takes place over all 15 volumes. This one is great for manga lovers. Maybe you want to revisit it, remembering it from the 80s or 90s, or, maybe you're just discovering it for the first time. This one is great for older teens and adults. All right, thank you all so much. I hope you enjoy your time listening and talking to our CXC guests, and that you'll pick up some comics either at one of our local shops or here at the library.